Are you thinking about starting up your own business, a startup, a side hustle, a consultancy, an advisory business? A lot of my executive clients are considering exiting the corporate life and going it out on their own and setting up their own enterprise. I have a couple of pieces of advice, having done this a few times myself and made every mistake in the book when it comes to setting up new enterprises. First and foremost, I think we always have had a tendency to underestimate how hard it's going to be. I think if you knew how hard it would be to set up your own enterprise and be in business for many, many years, you probably wouldn't do it. That's not to say you shouldn't do it, but I think there's a tendency to underestimate how tough it's going to be. Some things that could make it easier would be certainly to have not done this on a whim. You have to have come into this with not rose-colored glasses. You must do your research, you must do your planning, you must have an idea of where you're going to generate your income in the first 12 months. If you're hoping for something miraculously to happen, the chances of that occurring are pretty slim. So you do need to come into these enterprises from the get-go with a pretty clear idea of how you're going to generate your income and where those likely first clients are going to come from. And ideally, you would have those clients lined up. So I have a client at the moment who's exiting the corporate world, and she has about 4 or 5 key clients lined up who are going to generate revenue for her business in the first year, and that's going to give her a runway through to about August of next year. So that's a perfect scenario that would give that individual the confidence to leave the corporate world, leave the big salary behind, and go out on her own. And so you need to, have that game plan in place. Secondly, you do need to have some capital. I typically started businesses with about 50 to 100K in capital. Sometimes you needed a little bit more. Sometimes you could get away with a little bit less. But generally speaking, you needed to have a bit of a lump sum to get cracking. And you needed to make a bit of a strategic investment in some things like websites and, just your tools of trade, the marketing, the branding, and so on. Just putting up a shingle and having no sort of marketing or branding behind it is very, very hard. Not many companies want to do business with one-man bands that don't have a corporate presence. And so a lot of what the investment is to make you look a little bit better than you are on day one, a little bit more substantial, a little bit more professional, professional offices, professional website. All of that does count, because if you start to tender for business, they're going to look very carefully at all of those things. So it is important to have some capital put aside. And then finally, I think the most important thing is to get the right advice. And I would definitely be engaging some form of a business mentor or coach who's going to guide me through the first year to help me minimize the number of mistakes that I'm likely to make. You always make mistakes in the first year, second year of operation. That's just the reality. But if you have a mentor who's been there and done that before, and someone who can shed some light on some things that you shouldn't waste money on, don't do this, don't do that, it's incredibly valuable. And I remember many, many years ago when I was starting up, one of my businesses, and I had quite a high profile chair who was a well-known media personality, and this individual gave me some advice, and I had my heart set on going down a published route. I wanted to set up a magazine. And this individual said to me, no, Kylie, you've got no idea how much this is going to cost you. You've got no idea what the printing costs are, and it's going to absolutely sink you if you go down this pathway. And so that little bit of advice stopped me making $1 million mistake. And, that's what mentors, good coaches will do for you in the first year of business. So you absolutely have to consider those 3 key things. You've got to have a really good game plan. You must have some capital, and you must have some sort of advice guiding you in that first year, keep you on the straight and narrow, prevent you from making unnecessary mistakes if you're going to start up your first enterprise, maybe leave the corporate world behind, and you want to make that as smooth a transition as possible and as low risk as possible.